Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Legislative Matters Now with M&M. I'm Morgan Spicer, Special Projects Coordinator here at the ARC of the Mid-Ohio Valley. Now, before we begin today's show, let me explain that the purpose of this show is to educate all self-advocates, including Melissa and I, on the ever-important topic of legislative advocacy. Now, we do this each month by having a guest talk about various pieces of legislation. Now, we also, on many programs, depending on the topic and time allowed, do a segment called Advocate in Action, where we talk to a self-advocate who is using their self-advocacy skills in a positive light to not only influence their lives, but the lives of others around them. Now, today's guest will be talking to us about partners in policymaking, and not only that, our guest will also be our advocate in action. So it's going to be a big show today, so we can't wait to get things rolling. But before we get to that, let's start our show with who you're going to call.
You want to know more about partners in policymaking, but do not know who to call. So who are you going to call? A, your city council member. B, your state House of Delegates or state senators. C, your U.S. senator or U.S. Congress members. Or D, a state agency that specializes in what you are looking for. All right, Morgan, what do you think? A, B, C, or D?
The answer is D, a state agency.
That is correct. A state agency that specializes in what you're looking for. And then that state agency sent us to the chairperson for their board of directors, in this case, the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council. Since 1987, Partners in Policymaking programs have been implemented nationally and internationally. Thousands of Partners graduates are part of a growing national and international network of community leaders serving on policymaking committees, commissions, boards, and in elected office at all levels of government. The Partners movement is also available to thousands of others through free online self-advocacy courses in areas such as inclusive education, obtaining meaningful employment, and accessing high-quality community living arrangements. Through the combination of both on-site training and a vast array of internet-based training resources, Partners in Policymaking is intended to assist people with disabilities to know their rights, to know what to expect in terms of high-quality services and supports, and to know how to obtain such services and supports within their local communities. While it all began in Minnesota, Partners is now in 38 states, including West Virginia. This marks the 21st year of Partners in Policymaking here in West Virginia. They do it every other year. Back to you, Morgan.
Now, to better explain and provide more information about this program, today's guest is Brandy Beery, who is a former Partners in Policymaking graduate. She is also the chairperson of the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council, and she also teaches some of the courses in Partners in Policymaking. Now, there's a lot to cover, so we appreciate her taking the time to be here. Thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Morgan. I'm so excited to be able to share information about partners in policymaking. I always take an opportunity every time to share this information because I believe in so much of what this offers for people with families that are affected by people with developmental disabilities.
All right, let's get started. So can you please tell us about Partners in Policymaking, including the topics covered?
Well, Partners in Policymaking is a leadership program for adults with developmental disabilities, as well as parents or guardians of children with developmental disabilities. So what that means is that we have topics that we cover, such as the history behind developmental disabilities, where we were to where we are now, what type of services, supports, or resources that may be available. We talk about IEP developments and how to advocate for that. We talk about the state and federal legislative process, person-centered planning, building exclusive communities, self-determination, employment, housing, supported living, federal and state policies and laws. There is many topics covered in the 8 sessions that are available. So that's a lot of topics that we covered, and you may wonder why we have to cover so many topics. Well, it's important to know when you're learning about developmental disabilities is to know the history, where you came from. And the history is not always pretty. We do know that. And it's important to study history because if you don't, you can repeat it. And we do not want that to happen. We want to learn from the mistakes and we want to grow. So even though it is a difficult conversation to have, it is a must needed conversation to have. And usually when people think of developmental disabilities, they just think of IEPs in school, but there's much more to that. There's also having inclusive communities. That goes beyond the schoolroom. That includes the employment. That includes being part of any type of community building resources that are going on. And also what type of housing and living, the children do grow up. They can go live on their own. They can live in different types of housing. What that would look like? And how would you handle that? Or what type of supports are giving? It's also important to know the laws, not only at the state level, but also at the federal level. But if you're going to learn about the laws, you need to learn about the procedures of how a law is from the beginning to the end, how we go about that, and how you can help or support a law or be against a law. Not all laws are always good that come forth. There's also person-centered planning, and I think that's forgotten a lot. That the person that has a developmental disability should be the person that is the most active in planning their future. And I think that is sometimes pushed aside because everybody believes that they know what's best. But person-centered planning gives that person their voice to know what they want their goals and their future to look like. And that includes employment. Like I spoke about earlier, employment is important. And most people don't know that we passed an employment first bill. That's important to look at and learn about that information. So there's a lot of different information, not only IEPs, but a lot of different information that helps with all the different ages and different life experiences that this person with a developmental disability is going to have.
What is the format for the sessions?
Well, this is an exciting year, Morgan, because this is the first time that we are offering this. We are offering 2 locations in the state for people to attend. So before, it was always held in Charleston. Well, now we are adding a second location at the same time in Morgantown. So people from the northern and eastern part of our state can attend in person if they want. And these 2 sessions will be linked with one another. But there's also always the Zoom virtual portion that's added for anybody that not make it to transportation wise, or, our lives are busy. So sometimes it's hard to get to these sessions because these sessions are once a month from September to April, and they start at noon on Friday, and then they end on Saturday afternoon. So this also gives an opportunity with having 2 locations, Charleston and Morgantown, we always have national and state representatives or leaders in these fields that come and speak in person. So that gives them also 2 locations that they can fly into or travel into. So we're trying to accommodate more people with less traveling. And it's not always a lecture. Sometimes there are group building exercises. And I know people can get nervous about that. Oh no, I got to work in a group. But it is a great way to find out where our stories are similar and how to build our village. And that I still talk to people that I graduated with in 2020 and still network. And we still ask questions about, do you remember from this class who spoke about this topic? Or, I have a question. Do you remember that part? And it's so nice to have that connection, not only where I live locally, but also throughout the state if there's any question. So it's not always a lecture. Sometimes we go to, they always go to Charleston for one session. And we actually go through a mock of what it looks like when a bill is being introduced and how that procedure goes. And we are an active part of that. We have a script that we follow. And I learned a lot from that session. It's much different to be an active part than just sitting there. And Partners in Policy tries to give you that active part so you can actually learn and take these resources with you.
Is there homework involved outside of the sessions?
So the homework involved is it's not busy work, but it is stuff that needs to be done, such as learning about, when we talk about the legislature, many people may not know that the state is divided up in districts and who's your representative and what district do you live in and how do you contact them or how do you find out that information. So a little bit of homework is figuring out that part. And anybody that has any problems with trying to do their homework, there's always help available. But also part of their homework may be figuring out the acronyms that come with the disability world that we talk about, such as PWD stands for person with disability, or OT stands for occupational therapy. There's pages and pages long of what these mean, and we see it all the time in print, but sometimes it can be confusing if you don't understand that. So one of the homework pages is just that. Another homework page is just, what did you learn from the class, or what did you want to learn, or what are your plans or goals? Because this could be a great way to find out those plans and goals that you may have in place. Somebody in this class may be able to help with that journey, or maybe already went through that and can help your journey shorten a little bit so you're not figuring it out from scratch. So it's also a great way to network these homework assignments that are very, very simple and take no more than 10, 20 minutes at the most.
Now, this year is different because there is the opportunity to attend virtually, online, as well as in person. Talk about the details of how that will work for those online.
Yes, I was in the class of 2020, so that obviously went into the pandemic. So I got to experience being in person and then being online only. Being in person, you connect with your classmates so much more, or even the speakers that come to visit, you get to ask them questions, such as when we have lunch. It's a great time to network and just sit there and hear about each other's stories, or what you're going through, or if you need any help, or learning where your rest of your classmates are from within the state. So being in person is so much more personable, and a way to build such your village so you don't feel so alone. That's a big thing, is that people feel alone when they first start this journey because it's so new. But also, it's nice to have online because we know people's lives are busy. Travel is hard. It was hard for me being in the Eastern Panhandle to travel to Charleston every weekend, once a month. One weekend once a month. And that's hard for me. I mean, that's a 6-hour drive. So we are offering this year having 2 locations, the Charleston location and Morgantown location. So to help those people to be able to still have the in-person part and meet without having the extra time for travel. But there is one class that we do have everybody come to Charleston, and that is the one to meet at the Capitol and to go through the mock legislative process. There's no way that we can do that online. There's no way to reproduce that online. That is just too hard. It needs to be in person. And it gives you a much better outlook of what's going on. And if you ever have to go to Charleston for anything, such as you want to help with the work on a bill or discuss anything, it also lets you see what the Capitol looks like and how to get in and how to maneuver it and what you're looking for. So it gives you that experience too.
Now, is there any cost for the program? And what about stipends for transportation or other things?
There are stipends and reimbursements. You are paid per your mileage. So you do get a reimbursement check for that. You do get paid for any meals that you have while traveling to wherever class destination you are taking and coming back. They also will cover if you need any respite care services, they will cover that to a certain amount. Or if you need a personal assistant to attend with you, they will cover that to a certain amount. And that's all included in our brochure. And you can also find more information about that on the website.
What led you to apply for Partners in Policymaking?
Well, first I was I was a council member for the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council, and they kept talking about this Partners in Policymaking class that was offered, and how it was nationwide and plus our territories, and how important it was. And I never heard of this class before. And I'm hearing the topics that they're covering, and I'm like, sitting there going, this is all the information that I've always wanted as a parent with a child with a disability, all in one class. I don't have to travel all over the place or try to find this information bit by bit on my own. Here it is, all presented and nicely put together in folders and connections and informations and all these files. And now I know where to help my child and where to go with this. So I didn't hear about it until I was on the council and really pushed. I was one of the people that really pushed for it to be offered virtually and for another location because of being in the Eastern Panhandle and travel, because I believe that this class is so important for everybody.
How much did you know about the topics covered in PIP before you applied?
Well, that's a great question. I thought I knew a lot, and I really didn't. Because I was like, oh, I've sat in IEPs for my own child. I know what's going on. I know that everybody says that I need to have guardianship when he's 18, and I know that, and it was not that way. It was not that way. I did not know. I don't need guardianship of my son. And that's part of person-centered planning. I can just be a supported decision maker for him if he needs it for his finances or anything. So he's not losing his rights to me. And then also with IEPs, I didn't know that there was a whole resource book that's offered in our state with information on what my child can or should receive or what they need to receive. And it's a guidebook for me to take to IEPs that could help me along. The history, I knew nothing about the history. I never thought about having to study the history because I'm like, no, I'm going through it now. What do you mean? And the history brought out so much information for me of where we need to go and what we don't want to repeat. And most of all, I learned from self-advocates. And I think people forget about that. Self-advocates are our biggest resource for some things. And to hear their stories and their journeys from themselves and to be able to ask them questions to help me grow as an advocate was huge and priceless. And that helped me with learning about maybe future employment for my son or housing, any type of supported living that may be needed, about building inclusive communities and how they're involved in their communities. There was so much information that even after Partners is over, you're still got that wow factor from everything that you've been taken in and the people you met and the lessons you've learned and the history and everything.
What was your experience like?
My experience was great. I didn't know a lot of people from the Eastern Panhandle, and I ended up having like 6 or 7 people in my class and realizing that we live like 10, 15 minutes apart. So we really have built our relationships in that, which was amazing because we can help our community and work as a team together instead of feeling like we're on our own doing this. And also being in person and just hearing other people's stories, like you can be like, I have experience with that and this is what I did. And let's not reinvent the wheel. We can go ahead and do this. Or could you help me with this? I know your child is this age, or the self-advocate, you're this age and you've gone through this. Can you help me through this? Can you explain how this might have happened or what I should change or what you would have changed? To be able just to ask those questions and help one another was just life-changing.
What did you learn that surprised you the most?
Wow, that's a good one. The biggest thing that probably surprised me, the person-centered planning was probably the biggest thing, because everybody's always telling you, this is what you need to do for the person. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. No one ever sat down and was like, what does your son want to do? And I was like, it kind of shocked me because I never thought, yes, the person with the developmental disability should be here at this table and speaking about their future and involved in this and not be spoken about, but spoken to and having these discussions. And I'm like, my son is at that age. He should be at this table and he should be talking about this. And because that's going to help him grow as a self-advocate for him as an adult. And I was kind of surprised that I never thought of it like that. Like, you should be front row and this is about you. You should be front row and center in this discussion and an active part, even early in age. I mean, he's in middle school. He should be an active part. And I think people tend to forget that and only try to include them at the last minute, and they should be included in their childhood and teenage years as they're growing. And that was the biggest thing is, yes, he should be here. He's that age, even he's in his teenage years, he should be here. And this is about him.
What would you say to encourage people to apply for the program?
Just like anything, keep trying. I mean, don't just stop because you think you might not get accepted. You could. You never know. The biggest thing is to just apply. You'll be amazed about if you are able to qualify to get in, because we do ask for it to be an adult with a developmental disability or a parent or guardian with a developmental disability. But there are some cases where we might be able to let you attend. Say you are a foster parent and you have someone with a developmental disability. You might be able to attend if our class allows that. I mean, so there are cases where please apply. Don't stop just because you automatically think that there's no way, I don't qualify. You never know. There might be a part of your story that we're like, this is important and this person should be able to attend and be a part of this. So please apply.
Anything else you would like to add about Partners in Policymaking?
Oh, wow. Maureen, that's great, because I love this program so much, and I can talk, if you haven't noticed, I can talk about it forever and ever and ever. And I love helping build this program because it takes a village, like they say. And this is a great way to grow this village. The knowledge is priceless. Even if you think, no, I've been through that, I don't need that information, you're always learning. There's always new information coming. There's always chances to grow. There's always chances to meet new people, learn new information, or maybe change some of the old information. You might be like, well, why are we doing it this way all the time? Maybe this is the time to change it. So there are many opportunities that are given, and you don't have to be a huge advocate. Like, it could be something as simple as you are the person that likes to write letters or make the phone calls, the one that doesn't want to be center stage. So being an advocate could be so small as, yes, I'm going to contact my representative through email, or it can be, I'm going to drive to Charleston and talk to everybody and try to knock on the doors personally. There's so many different ways to be an advocate and be successful and help push and grow this community.
Thank you for that. And as I said at the beginning, she's also going to be our advocate in action. So let's get to that now. So when did you begin your journey as an advocate, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, I am a parent of a child with a disability. My child was diagnosed at 4, so we missed the birth to 3 window, which has a lot of information. So I was starting out very new and knew nothing about this community or where to start or where to go. So after a few years, my husband and I still feeling kind of lost and not knowing the best supports for our son, I saw that there was an application to be a member on the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council. And my husband and I talked about it, and I decided to apply because we were like, we are going to learn. I want to learn what's going on, what's being offered, what's not being offered, and how to help my son the best. So it was just one of those whims that I just happened to come across this application, turned it in, was accepted by the governor, and was a council member. And that is when my world opened, and as well as my eyes to things that are being offered, not being offered. That was 2016. And that is where my growth really started to soar.
What types of advocacy have you been involved with?
Well, I also sit on the board for Disability Rights of West Virginia, which I did not know again until I was on the council, that there are many different organizations that you can sit on the board and help with their growth and learning and spreading information. But also, I also helped with 2 nonprofits begin from the floor and start opening into our area. And also, as small as stuff as being just a phone call away for a fellow parent or somebody with a disability. It's so much has grown from being an advocate and my knowledge that I'm able to share that information with others and hopefully spread that information. And like I said, it takes a village, and that's how we build it.
What are some of the barriers that you find you need to advocate for for yourself or others?
The biggest barrier I seem to run into is that if a person is not personally affected by this, say they don't have a family member with a developmental disability, is having them understand the importance of like employment, inclusive communities, housing, transportation. If they aren't personally affected by this, it's hard for them to understand some of the growth that is needed in this community and supports and stuff, and having the importance of how people with developmental disabilities need to be in our communities and need to be included and are just as valued as anybody else.
Have you seen your advocacy skills grow over the years?
My skills have grown tremendously from just say 2016. So I have learned a lot of different aspects that affect people with developmental disabilities, starting from birth all the way up until, end of life, and what barriers are coming across, or what supports are needed, or what agencies are out there, or what organizations you can be supported. So learning about that information, but also I love that I've learned about this because I've had parents reach out and go, I think I've heard that you've done this before, or that you've been affiliated with this, and I have a question about this, such as Partners in Policymaking. I heard that you've graduated from this. How do I find the application, or should I apply for this? I love being a person that anybody can reach out to me, email, call, whatever, if they have a simple question about anything that is going on in their life, or what they're trying to work towards, or goals they're setting up, or any assistance at all. I like being able to be that central person because I know how it feels not knowing what rights there are or anything, and not knowing where to reach out for that, to have those questions answered. So being that person means the world to me.
Do you find it easier to advocate for yourself or for other people?
Definitely other people. I admire self-advocates because I'm the type of person that it's difficult for me to stop and be like, well, I need help, or I need assistance or something. So for self-advocates to be able to stand up and be like, for me to be successful, this is what I need. I am in awe of that, because that takes a lot of courage and confidence and growth for that person to be like, this is what I need. For me to be successful, these are the things that I need. And this is where I learn from them. This is definitely the parts that I learned from them, and that is priceless. And I'm so thankful for the self-advocates that have helped me grow as a parent with a child with a disability, but also for myself on different areas of my life.
Based on your experience, what tips can you give us to help be better advocates?
The biggest tip for me is always have an open mind. With an open mind, that is how you're going to gain the most knowledge. You might think, oh, my child's an adult. I don't need to learn about IEPs. We're finished that. But you know what? Learning about IEPs now, you might be able to help a fellow parent that is going through that. Even though it might not be a part of your life, you learn something new that might help somebody else. And that is the best way to help our community grow, is learning from all different aspects. Even if it's not affecting us at that time, it might be affecting our neighbor or someone that we know or somebody that's reaching out, and that we are able to lend that hand to them and help support them, and vice versa. I mean, I might be in need and I'm like, I don't remember this part, or I don't remember who to connect with, and I can reach out to that person and be like, yes, Brandy, this is who we talked to and this is what we did, remember? And I'm like, thank you for that reminder. So I think that's the biggest thing, is even though it might not seem to be affecting your life at that moment, it might be affecting somebody else, and you could help them.
If there is one thing you have learned that you wish you knew when you started being an advocate, what would that be?
Oh, man. For me, the biggest thing would have been reaching out for organizations and stuff sooner. I just thought, well, we don't really need this organization because we're not really there yet. But they can help me with, this is where you need to be right now. This is the child. This is your age group. This is where you need to be. This is who you need to call. This is, to have the connection or to have a resource spot. I didn't reach out for that. I just went with what everybody told me. And not everybody, my pediatrician is amazing, but obviously she doesn't know the whole world for developmental disabilities. So she's only so much of a opinion or an information source for us. So I didn't know about, the council, disability rights, the art, all of that stuff. Reach out to that stuff as soon as possible so they can start giving you the connections in your community or at least in your area, so you can start building that, and that will help build your knowledge and your networking so you can be as successful as possible.
What keeps you from giving up when you're not getting the results you want?
My son. He's the biggest one. I look at him and he deserves the best future. And if I give up, I failed him. And that is not a choice. That is my son. I am here for him and I will support him. And also now, this will be lifelong for me. It doesn't stop for my son. This is my passion. I've seen and been invited into this community with open arms, and I want to be there to support them, and I want to be able to help them grow, and I want to take that from them too. They help me grow. So I will always be in this community and helping advocate the best I can.
Anything else you'd like to add?
What I'd like to add is just always keep moving forward. This is a hard area that sometimes you feel like nobody is listening. Keep moving forward. You will get somebody that is listening, and that will help eventually. You will feel like nobody's listening to me at this moment. You just haven't found that right person. So keep moving forward. That is the biggest thing. Keep moving forward, and you'll eventually find that person, and you can grow. I know I mentioned you can grow a lot in this conversation, but that is the biggest thing in this community is the growth and the knowledge, and just keep going, keep moving forward, no matter what.
Thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate this, and I'm always a phone call away for anybody. And please visit the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council's webpage, and you can find the application for Partners in Policymaking. And easy enough, you can also call and contact us, and we'll get that information to you. So thank you.
Now, don't forget, if you have an important piece of legislation you want discussed on a future episode or want to be an advocate in action, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Now, you can call the ARC at 304-422-3151, or you can email Melissa or I directly. My email is morgan.spicer@thearcmov.org, and Melissa can be reached at melissa.southall@peoplefirstwv.org. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We want to thank Brandy Beery, who is the chairperson of the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council, for taking the time to join us on this month's episode. But with that, we are out of time for this month's episode. Thanks so much for joining us this month. And remember that advocacy matters, and so do you. See you next time.